So I just had my first, I think technically my first meltdown. I've had like crying spells and stress and things like that. But mostly I've been kind of too sick to really like physically ill to, or like in pain to really, uh, I guess, interact with the outside world. And by outside world, I mean anything outside of like the core group of people who are like I'm talking to every day or, a few times a week or whatever, and who are helping me and driving me to appointments and helping with my house and my dogs and stuff like that. So, I have my core group of people, and it's like kind of like when you drop a like you're the rock or the whatever that gets thrown in the water, and then the ripples, the concentric ripples sort of represent the different circles of people in your world. And kind of like chess, they can move interchange, or like they can move closer and farther away, and some of them fall off the board eventually or get kicked off the board. um, and that a lot of that is happening right now, or not a lot of it, but I guess it's starting to happen right now. And um, what has shown me that, I guess, is within the last couple of weeks. First of all, I have not been feeling well. What is today? April 8th? Yeah, April 8th. Oh yeah, it's Eclipse Day, which is crazy because I had the absolute best day making little eclipse boxes, or viewing boxes to watch or to look at it with old cereal boxes, and like, I was experiencing like the joy of being a child again. Anyways, um, yeah, I like had a great day and I felt pretty good. I didn't even take a nap, because I was a little nauseous, but I was actually feeling okay. It's just that like underlying nausea that's just kind of floating there in your belly, and you just carry it with you because what else are you gonna do? Starting to remind me of chemo. Anyways, yeah, so I hadn't been feeling good the last couple weeks, but I didn't have any appointments for like the last week and a half. I've had phone calls and stuff like that with doctors and nurses and whatnot, and then I've been trying to like catch up on just admin shit specifically for my work, which is kind of what leads me to the topic tonight that sent me down a fucking spiral of like worry. And I mean, it's fair for me to have these little meltdowns, and maybe not so little, but long story short, in the last couple weeks, I haven't been feeling well. I have not had like medical appointments that I've had to go to. But I've had a little break. But what that means is on the days that I'm feeling okay and I don't have an appointment, those are the days that I have to do like my taxes, which I still haven't done on the fucking 8th of April. My admin stuff for work to like get the right signatures on the right forms and all the shit that seems so insignificant to me now, but has its place, right? So, I'm trying to get new forms signed for my medical leave. I started having conversations with people about like the end of my career, essentially, is what this is. It's and I don't think I want to fight that at this point. the military will more than likely decide to medically retire me. And I, initially I actually felt relieved. And I think that speaks volumes for just the trajectory that I was headed towards again. I think I was headed back towards the workaholism that I had before. And, for a while, I was able to convince myself that I could have it both ways, that I could have fulfillment in my career and have what they call work-life balance, which I now realize is just such a shitty term. It should be life-work balance, in my opinion. But I was convinced that I could have it all, and that I could stay on active duty, and that I could maintain TRICARE, which was the biggest priority for me as being considered medically complex, and now metastatic. But yeah, so I was convinced that I could have all of that, that I could maintain a career and maintain my life, my personal life, and stay healthy, and keep myself at the top of the priority list. And but I think there was a little piece of me that was terrified of what the cost might be. And unfortunately now, the cost is my health, or not even really the cost, I guess. It's I have to pick my worst. Like, I don't have great choices or great options, and in some ways I do have great options. Like, I'm lucky to have the options I have, for medical retirement and disability, and all the things I paid into, savings and all of that too. So I'm in a very fortunate place to be able to have access to those decisions. And speaking of decisions, I'm doing like end of life type planning. I'm not, it's so weird because I don't consider myself actively dying. I am getting sicker, but I'm still in the beginning stages of, finding the right therapies that work for me. So I know it's going to be a little bit rocky, and I know my disease is still progressing. From like February to March, I know, it's gotten worse because I can feel it, and I can see it in the scans, or the doctors can see it in the scans. So I know my disease is progressing. I know it's a terminal diagnosis. I know that my time left on the earth is limited. And I also know that I am incredibly fortunate to have access to the good access to good options or good decisions. I think there's a line in, I think it's Little Fires Everywhere, where God, I can't remember the characters' names, but the one, initially we think she's an antagonist, but she says in the show, it's Kerry Washington, she says to Reese Witherspoon's character, says to Kerry Washington, she says, something about making good choices, and Kerry Washington just immediately snaps back or claps back with, the difference between you and me basically is that you had good choices. And that always stuck with me. And I am fortunate enough to be on the side to have access to good choices. And while metastatic stage 4 terminal, whatever you want to call it, breast cancer is not necessarily a good choice that I would have made for myself. It's still, there are layers within that, layers of choices within that make me very fortunate. So I recognize that, and it is a very privileged place to be. But yeah, I've been talking about like end of life stuff, and it's just so hard to say that because I feel like I'm misleading people. Because when I say terminal, or I say end of life planning or estate planning or anything like that, or doing my will or anything like that, it freaks people out. And I mean, I guess that makes sense. I know that makes sense, but it gave me a little bit of control in an otherwise chaotic situation, where like I don't have a lot of control, and the only controls that I do have access to are, planning for the future, planning for what happens to my stuff, which is like so not important, but apparently is important because, death and taxes. So yeah, but yeah, just realizing that like the actual meltdown, getting to the point, is that, or was that there was an event at my old unit that happened that is significant for so many ways, historically, to me personally. It's a big deal to the unit, and I don't even know if the unit understands how big of a deal it is. And so that's part of the reason why I'm so hurt and upset and just I don't want to say devastated because I don't like that word, but I was, when I first discovered that this ceremony happened, and I didn't even know. I wasn't invited. I wasn't aware. There were so many people that should have told me. And I thought it like would be obvious to them that I would want to at least know. And it's one of those things, like, I'm not going to be able to make it to everything, and I might be too sick. Like Saturday, there were a bunch of ceremonies, and I was so excited to go to them because I would be able to see like all the people I haven't seen in a while, since I left that job and started the new one and then got sick. So I was excited to like be around the people that have contributed to who I am, who I've become in the last many years, and specifically my career. And I was so, and I even told one of the higher ranking folks, that I'm still pretty close with, that I worked very closely with when I was in this other unit. And I told him, I'm like, I was so excited, and I said, I'm gonna try to make it to the ceremony this afternoon. And then literally like 30 minutes after I sent that message, I just got flooded with pain and nausea, and I got the chills, and I was sweating. It was awful. And so I had to go upstairs. Like, I don't even, it was like a blur, and I couldn't go to the ceremony that afternoon. And then the next day, like, kind of felt okay, and there was a party later, for a different ceremony, and I couldn't go to that, and I felt awful about not being able to go, and I felt physically awful. So anyways, then Saturday, I guess there was a ceremony, like I said, that was incredibly significant, and I know that nobody could truly know how important it would have been to me, but still, I feel like they just should have known. They should have known that, because it's a position that I was pretty sure that I was going to end up in at some point. And then, things change, and life changes, and I ended up leaving that career field, just for my own health, because I couldn't physically do the things that I was going to be asking airmen to do. And that was one of my biggest sort of mantras, or, I don't know what to call it. Like one of my, I guess it seems arbitrary now, but one of my goals for that role was that I could, I wouldn't ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And that was just so important to me, and I just couldn't physically do it anymore. So so I switched career fields, and it was becoming more and more apparent to me that I just wasn't, that wasn't gonna be my destiny, and that was okay. But to see a female take command of that unit, it was a change of command that happened, and to see a female take command of that unit after, so much that the unit went through, and I went through, frankly, with that unit, that it is historic. It's historically significant. It's personally significant to me. That's where I learned, that unit is where I learned that representation truly matters, and that I was a part of that, and I had an opportunity to be a part of that. And it's such a big deal. And, I don't even think I realized how big that is, or was, and will continue to be. And to not even be considered in sharing that momentous occasion was really hurtful. And I felt unseen. I felt let down. I felt isolated. I felt forgotten. And so then it, of course, spiraled into this, one part of it that I think is warranted is, and I did address it with the people concerned, but it is warranted for me to say to them, look, you fucked up. You should have thought of me, and you didn't. And just, say my piece with that. Nobody can change it. I can't expect people to know how I'm feeling every single day, whether I'm going to be there or not, but they don't get to decide that for me either. That's one of the things I told one of the people involved in it was, they said, oh, I'm so sorry. Or not even I'm sorry. It was, I don't remember how they said it in the beginning, but what I focused on, or what I sort of zeroed in on, was they said, you have enough going on, you need to be resting, or you need to rest, or some bullshit platitude like that. And that just sent me down saying that to me at all is going to send me down the fucking spiral of doom because the way I describe it to people is, and bigger picture, none of us get to decide for others what they should and shouldn't be doing, unless they're your child, unless there's some legal situation involved, or you have some sort of authority, or you're qualified in some way, right, to make that decision for someone. And this person is not in a position to make that decision for me. Nobody is in a position to make that decision for me. And so one of the things I said at the first diagnosis was, you don't get to, I have so few days where I feel good, during chemo and all of that. I have so few days where I feel really, really good. You're not going to see me on the shitty days. So if you see me, it means, and again, it goes back to those concentric circles of people, right? The people closest to me probably are going to see me when I'm feeling shitty because I need help, or because, they're close to me and they have that level, they have that level of access to me for whatever reason, and only I get to decide that, right? And that's the same for all of us. So those people are going to see me sick. And as you go out, further out into those concentric circles of people that are, you know, still in your orbit, but aren't as close or aren't as qualified, which I'll talk about in another video. Been working on that one with an actual script, which is crazy. I don't usually do that, but yeah, the people kind of further out in the further sections of those orbits are not in a place, nor are they qualified to make that decision for you. And so to me, when they say shit like that, it's dismissive. It makes me feel like a child, which is a whole nother topic. In disease like this, it kind of gives them an out, I think, to absolve them of their guilt for not including you, is essentially what it is. And maybe that's not their intent, whatever. That's how I receive it. And, you know, if I feel like addressing it further, if I feel like it's worth the energy, or if I have the energy, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Again, they're kind of far out in that orbit, so they're not necessarily people that, you know, I would maybe want to spend energy on right now if I don't have that energy. So anyways, all that to say, this was the first time I felt or like I was able to identify this feeling of this new feeling, different type of isolation. The first time I was diagnosed, you know, I was isolated in a very different way. I was isolated in like in a way of having cancer and going through chemo, and like the sort of commonly understood, oh, she's sick with cancer. You know, I looked sick. I didn't have any hair. I lost my eyebrows, all that stuff. And it was COVID. It was during COVID time. So I went through chemo the first time, January 2020 to May of 2020. So, you know, everyone was isolated. And so it was not as isolating, even though it was the most isolated that any of us had ever been, you know, in most of our lives. But for me, it was kind of like it brought everyone to my level. It brought everyone to where I was. They were better able to meet me where I was. And, you know, I still got the whole, oh, you should be resting, you shouldn't be at work or whatever in the very beginning. And again, I said, you know, you don't get to take the good days away from me. Believe me when I say I'm well enough to be here. I don't feel like I have to be here. Some people do. And I think that, again, those people in your close inner circle probably have the right or the experience or are qualified to help you understand that, or to help you see that. But most people aren't. And that's the thing, I think, that, you know, by being essentially forgotten about with this, and not intentional, that's the thing. Intent doesn't matter at this point, because I know that nobody's like deleted me off the fucking invite list intentionally. Like I'm not saying there's any sort of malicious intent there, but I was forgotten, and it was something that was really, really important to me, and people who are really, really important to me forgot me. And it was hurtful, or it is hurtful. I'm still like, get a little teary thinking about it. Because for me, it's bigger than just not being invited to a ceremony. It's, you know, it's a step towards being forgotten. And I wonder, like, what am I going to do with these next few years, or however many years I have, to not be forgotten? And maybe not so much like not me being forgotten, but all of the like purity, the like pure good intent, and just all the goodness that I have worked so hard to create in my life. Like, I want that for other people. And, I was telling a friend of mine who's in that inner circle, I was telling her a couple days ago that I was thinking about, well, shit, if I die, what have I done? And there's really nothing like facing a terminal diagnosis to give you, or to help you grant yourself permission to be satisfied with what you've experienced, not even what you've accomplished, not even what you've earned, or what you've done professionally or anything like that. It's to be satisfied with the work you have put into yourself, or the learning and what you've overcome, because we all have to overcome things from childhood. It's just a rite of passage, I guess, right? And nobody's trauma is worse than the other, because your grief or your trauma is the worst trauma. That's David Kessler said that, and I heard it years ago, and it's never failed to amaze me every time I hear it. So your loss is the worst loss. Your trauma is the worst trauma. Your experience is the most significant experience to you. And so I totally lost my train of thought. This was going so well. And the reason I lost it is because the person that I was talking to earlier about not inviting me to their ceremony, they said at the end, some platitude of like, your feelings are valid. And I was just like, oh no, I can't. So I just took a step back, disengaged, and now am recording this video. So yeah, it's just what it boils down to is being worried. It kind of all culminated in, I learned within the last week and a half, or like I started to accept that I'm going to be medically retired. I'm going to have to get comfortable with a career choice that I didn't choose for myself, but also acknowledge that it's gave me relief to think about, which says a lot, and I'll have to do some unpacking there. And being forgotten by something, people and a unit that I truly poured my heart and soul into. And yes, had started distancing myself and didn't have any plans on going back to that unit, but still really felt like I was such a part of it, that like and I've been hurt for a while, that I wasn't really included in much individual wise. Like the people that mattered were the ones who invited me to their stuff, and I know that. So I'm grateful for those people. So it's a new unit, it's a new generation. Every time I would go there, it's people I don't recognize and people who don't know who I am, which is exactly how it should work. But it's hard when it's people you do know and they essentially forget about you, or they didn't consider you for whatever reason. So, but it helps you kind of figure out where they go in that concentric orbit or circles of orbits or whatever. And so yeah, I can be okay with it now and know, well, that's one less handful, fewer people that I have to use my energy on, my limited energy. And then it's another slice of work life that I don't really have to worry about anymore. And so while it still hurts quite a bit, it's, I guess, freeing to know that. And yeah, so thanks for going on this emotional roller coaster with me. Maybe I should get like a little plexiglass case and call it my glass case of emotion. I don't know. I'm tired. So yeah, here we are, onward.